Hi everyone, today we are talking about instructive interaction and permissive interaction. Instructive interaction and permissive interactions comes under the topic of induction and competence in the developmental biology. So here we are talking about instructive interaction. In my first video I already talked about what is meant by induction and competence. So in the instructive interaction we need an inducer and a responder. An inducer is necessary for the responder for the induction process, that is for the responder to express its genes. So the inducer what actually do is that inducer sends signals to the responder, that is responder is competent to the inducer, that is it accepts the signal and responds to the signals sent by the optic vesicle for the formation of lens to determine its future fate. So the inducer is capable of send signals to the responder and the responder is competent to the signal sent by the inducer, and the interactions is take place here between the inducer and the responder in the formation of, and it leads to the formation of lens, what that head ectoderm is actually determines to. So the instructive interactions maintains a interaction between the inducer and responder, that is a induction. In the instructive interaction it is necessary for the responder for the induction for the induction reaction, that is the inducer is necessary for the responder for the induction reaction for the expression of new genes by the responder. A typical example for the instructive interaction is the lens formation in xenopus. The instructive interaction restricts the developmental options in the organism via the signal sent by the inducer and the signal accepted by the responder. So the inducer and responder interaction must be present for the instructive interactions to be carried out. So here the typical example is the lens formation in xenopus, that is the optic vesicle act as the inducer and head ectoderm as the responder. The optic vesicle sends signals to the head ectoderm and the head ectoderm is competent to the signal sent by the responder, and the head ectoderm is determined its phase by the formation of lens. So the instructive interaction is the interaction between the inducer and the responder in which the it restricts the developmental options between the inducer and the responder. In the case of the permissive interaction, here they not need the signals via the induction, no signals, and there is no inductive reactions is taking place, and it needs only a favorable environment to develop. In order to develop the organs, there must need a favorable environment, not a signals or a induction interactions. A typical example for the permissive interaction is the extracellular matrix presence. In the case of tissues and many cells, user need an extracellular matrix to develop. This extracellular matrix doesn't alter the type of cells that is produced, but it enables what has already been determined to be expressed. So in the case of permissive interaction, there only need a favorable environment, no need of an inducer and a signal sent by the inducer. The organ to be determined need only the presence of extracellular matrix for their future fate to be expressed. So the extracellular matrix presence is the only need for the permissive interactions to take place. Next we move to the epithelial and mesenchymal interaction. What the epithelial and mesenchymal actually means that the epithelia, the sheet of cells which originates from any cell layer. Epithelia are actually the sheet of cells originates from any cell layer, but the mesenchymal are the loosely packed and connected derived from mesoderm or neural crest. All organs consist of epithelia and associated mesenchymes. Organs are the result of interaction between the epithelial and mesenchymes. So the if we taking a particular organs, there must be an epithelial and mesenchymal interaction between them. So in the table we can see that the organ, epithelial component and mesenchymal component. For the cutaneous structures to develop, there must be the interaction between the epidermis and the epithelial component and the mesenchymal component. For the cutaneous structures, the derivative of epithelia is the epidermis, that is the ectoderm, and the mesodermal component is the dermis. So the interaction between the epidermis and dermis make the cutaneous structures. Then moving to the next, limb. Limb is developed by the interaction between epidermis, that is the ectodermal component, and ectodermal derivative and mesenchyme, that is the mesodermal derivative. So here the epidermal, dermis and mesenchymal interaction makes the formation of limb. In the case of gut organs, that is liver, pancreas, salivary glands, the interaction between epithelium and mesenchyme is needed. The epithelial component derived from the endoderm and the mesenchymal component derived from the mesoderm. Then moving to the pharyngeal and respiratory associated organs, lungs, thymus, thyroid. Here we can see the interaction between epithelial and mesenchyme. The epithelium is the endodermal origin and the mesenchyme is the mesodermal origin. Then towards the kidney, we can see that ureteric bud, that is the epithelium which is derived from the mesoderm, that is an exception case for the epithelial and mesenchymal interaction, and the mesenchymal component that is derived from the mesoderm. So here the interaction between this mesodermal and mesodermal component kidney is formed. Then moving to the tooth, we can see that the jaw epithelium, that is the ectodermal component derived from the ectoderm, and the mesenchymal component interaction from the neural crest. So the jaw epithelium and the mesenchymal interaction that is derived from the neural crest, the tooth is formed. So the every organ is formed by an interaction between epithelial and mesenchymal component. So epithelial and mesenchymal interaction is necessary for an organs to be formed. Then moving to the next topic, regional specificity of induction. We can see that the regional specificity, what actually means, it's make the cutaneous structure development. In a typical example, regional specificity forms the cutaneous structure development in chick. Source of mesenchymal inducing tissue determines the structure of epithelial derivative. Regional specificity makes the sense that the source of mesenchyme, that is the inducing tissue, determines the structure of epithelial derivative. So moving to the typical example, cutaneous structure development in chick, we can understand it's more clearly. That is, skin is composed of two main tissues, that is an epithelial tissue and mesenchymal tissue, that we are already discussed that the epithelial tissue derived from ectoderm and the mesenchymal tissue derived from mesoderm. The epithelial tissue forms the epidermis, that is the outer structure, and the mesenchymal tissue forms the dermis, that is the inner structure. Chick epidermis secretes protein that signals the underlying dermal cells to form condensations, and the condensed dermal mesenchyme responds by secreting factors that cause the epidermis to form regionally specific cutaneous structures. So what it actually tells that the chick epidermis secretes proteins. The epidermis of the chick is capable of secreting certain proteins, that is the signals. The signals sent from the epidermis reaches the dermis. The signal sent by the epidermis reaches the dermis, and the dermis form condensations. The dermis make the condensation via the condensed dermal mesenchyme. The condensed dermal mesenchyme is capable of producing certain factors. That is, these factors are capable of sent back to the epidermis to form the structural development and cutaneous structures. So we can say that the chick epidermis secretes certain proteins that signals the underlying dermal cells to form condensations. So here that the epidermis is capable of secreting certain proteins, that is the signal sent towards the dermis they form condensation, that is then the condensed dermal mesenchyme. The proteins received by the dermis and they form condensed dermal mesenchymes. The condensed dermal mesenchymes produce certain factors that is capable of reaching the epidermis, and they cause the epidermis to make structural development and cutaneous structures. So cutaneous structure developmental take place. Here in the figure we can see that